Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We today talking about unforce yourself to be consistent in a world that glorifies hustle and dramatic overnight success. The power of steady, quiet, disciplined effort is often overlooked. We are conditioned to applaud those who make a splash, who go all in for a week or a month, and then fade just as quickly as they rose. But the truth remains unshaken. Consistency is greater than intensity. Anyone can sprint for a short time. Very few can endure the marathon. The real measure of growth is not how hard you can go on your best day, but how committed you are on your worst. Intensity is seductive. It gives the illusion of progress. You pour everything into a single moment, you feel exhausted, maybe even proud, and then you stop. But what changes you is not that single outburst, it's the repetition. It's the choice to keep showing up when the energy is gone, when no one is watching, when the novelty has worn off. Real transformation happens not in a flash of brilliance, but in the grind of commitment. Discipline over motivation. People often wait to feel motivated before they act. They say, when I'm inspired, I'll start, or I need to feel ready. That mindset is a trap. Motivation is temporary. It's an emotion, and like all emotions, it comes and goes. If you rely on motivation, you'll be consistent only when conditions are perfect, and they never are. The real driver of consistency is discipline. Discipline is the decision to do what you said you would do long after the mood in which you made that decision has left you. It doesn't ask how you feel, it commands that you follow through. Discipline builds character. It builds trust in yourself. The more often you act without needing to feel like it, the stronger your internal muscle becomes. Discipline doesn't just keep you on track, it teaches you who you really are when there are no external rewards. Tiny habits build empires. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. They want massive results fast, and when they don't see instant progress, they quit. But the truth is that greatness is not built in big dramatic actions. It's built in small, intentional habits practiced daily. It's not the one intense workout that changes your body, it's hundreds of regular ones. It's not the one deep conversation that builds a relationship, it's consistent communication over time. When you understand the compounding power of small actions, you stop chasing extremes. You stop trying to do everything in one day and start doing the right things every day. The difference may seem invisible at first, but over months and years, it becomes undeniable. Tiny habits done consistently build empires. Do it especially when you don't feel like it. Anyone can show up when it's easy. Anyone can perform when they're energized, inspired, or well-rested. But the ones who win in life are the ones who do it anyway, especially when they don't feel like it. That's the real test. That's when your commitment is proven, not proclaimed. There will be mornings when you wake up exhausted, days when you're discouraged, and moments when quitting seems justified. But those are the exact moments where consistency is forged. When you act despite resistance, you not only stay on track, you train your mind to follow your word, not your mood. It's easy to move forward when the wind is at your back. Real consistency is built in the storm. Systems create sustainability. It's not enough to want to be consistent. You need systems that support consistency. Willpower is a limited resource. You can't rely on it every day to make the right decisions. That's why systems matter. Systems remove decision fatigue. They create structure. They automate discipline. Whether it's setting a time each day for a workout, having a morning routine that grounds you, or limiting distractions with specific boundary, systems make consistency easier. You're not trying to figure it out every day, you've already decided. The less you rely on emotion or memory, the more consistent you become. Great performers aren't more inspired, they're more organized. Legacy is built in the quiet. People think legacy is built in spotlight moments and awards, achievements, public wins. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. What really builds a life of purpose is what you do when no one is watching. It's the hours of practice that never make a post. It's the early mornings, the late nights, the showing up with no fanfare, no audience, no applause. The world only sees the outcome. You know the process. Legacy is not created in intensity, but in quiet, consistent effort. Every time you choose to show up, especially when it doesn't feel glamorous or exciting, you are carving the future you want. The applause may come later or not at all, but the work you put in, that's what lasts. There's a popular belief that if you just find enough motivation, everything else will fall into place. That you need to feel inspired to act. That if the mood is right, the results will come. But this belief is a trap. Motivation is a spark, it lights the fire, but it doesn't keep it burning. It's fleeting, fragile, and unreliable. Discipline is what keeps the fire alive. Discipline is the decision to do what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. When the motivation fades, and it always does, discipline is the force that keeps you moving forward. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is intentional. One is based on how you feel. The other is based on who you've committed to become. If you only show up when you're motivated, you'll be inconsistent. You'll move in short bursts, start things you never finish, and wonder why you're stuck. But when you build discipline, you become unstoppable. You no longer wait to feel ready. You act regardless. That's how goals are reached, not by excitement, but by execution. Consistency is greater than intensity. Too many people mistake intensity for commitment. They go all in for a week, burn out, and quit. They think that working hard once in a while will lead to change. But real growth doesn't come from massive action once it comes from small actions repeated daily. Intensity is a sprint. Consistency is a marathon. And discipline is the mindset that fuels consistency. Anyone can push hard for a short time. It's not hard to go to the gym for 3 hours when you're feeling pumped. But can you go for 45 minutes every day, even when you're tired? That's what matters. That's what builds results. Motivation will have you starting. Discipline will make sure you finish. Tiny habits build empires. We want big results. We want transformation. And we want it fast. But we overlook the power of tiny habits. Discipline doesn't mean making huge changes overnight. It means doing the small, important things even when they seem insignificant and doing them every day. 1 page read, 1 healthy meal, 1 honest conversation, 1 focused hour of work. These things don't seem like much, but done daily they add up. They shape who you are. Discipline turns those small decisions into rituals, and rituals become identity. You become the person who doesn't miss. You become the person who does what matters even when it doesn't feel exciting. That's how empires are built, not by luck, not by hype, but by habits. Do it especially when you don't feel like it. There will be days when you're drained. Days when the pressure feels heavy. Days when quitting would be easier than continuing. And those are the days that matter the most. It's easy to act when you're motivated. It's powerful to act when you're not. Discipline isn't tested when everything's going right. It's tested when everything's going wrong. When it's cold, when it's dark, when no one is watching. That's when the strongest version of you is forged. If you can train yourself to show up on the days you least feel like it, you become untouchable. You build grit. You build momentum. You learn to separate how you feel from what you do, and that's the key to progress that lasts. Systems create sustainability. Discipline alone isn't just about willpower. It's about designing your life to support your goals. If you want to stay consistent, you need systems, you need structure, you need routines that make your success easier and your excuses harder. It's not about being perfect. It's about creating an environment where doing the right thing becomes the default. Set the time, remove distractions, plan ahead, and build boundaries. Systems take the pressure off your emotions. They make discipline automatic. You don't waste energy deciding whether or not to do something you've already decided. That's how sustainable discipline is built. It's not about grinding harder every day. It's about thinking smarter every day. Legacy is built in the quiet. People see the results, but they rarely see the work. They admire the achievements, but not the daily sacrifices behind them. Discipline lives in the quiet. It lives in early mornings, late nights, and moments when you push through without anyone cheering. That's where legacy is built, not in front of cameras, but in the shadows of your routine. The world may not notice every rep, every draft, every small decision, but you will. You'll know who you became when it wasn't easy. You'll know the price you paid for growth. And you'll carry that with you not as a burden, but as pride in your ability to keep going. People often assume that greatness is the result of one massive action, one bold decision, one breakthrough moment. They imagine that empires are built in grand gestures and dramatic events. But that's not the truth. Real, lasting success comes from small, repeated actions. The world may celebrate the moment you arrive, but what got you there were the countless tiny steps you took in silence. Tiny habits done daily may look insignificant, but over time they become the foundation of something unshakable. It's easy to get excited about a big idea. It's easy to be inspired by a vision of what life could be. But ideas don't build anything without action. And the most sustainable action is not extreme or heroic, it's manageable and consistent. One small focused action each day doesn't feel like much in the moment, but compounded over months and years, it becomes powerful. It creates rhythm, it builds identity, and that identity turns into achievement. You don't suddenly become disciplined or successful. You act like it long enough in small ways until it becomes who you are. Discipline over motivation. You can't rely on motivation to sustain those habits. Motivation is unreliable. It fluctuates with your mood, your circumstances, your energy. There will be days when you don't feel like doing anything. Days when progress feels invisible and pointless. That's when you need discipline. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel, it simply requires that you follow through. Tiny habits are only powerful when they are done consistently, and consistency requires discipline. You don't need to feel inspired to read 1 page. You don't need to be full of energy to write for 10 minutes or go for a short walk or review your goals. These things are accessible every day, and they matter more than occasional bursts of effort. If you depend on motivation, your habits will collapse the moment life gets hard. If you depend on discipline, they will hold even through chaos. Consistency is greater than intensity. Intensity is loud. It draws attention. It feels good to do something extreme, but the problem with intensity is that it burns hot and fast. It isn't built to last. Consistency, on the other hand, is quiet, it's patient. It doesn't always feel exciting, but it's what actually creates momentum. One intense action can make you feel like you're making progress, but it's not what creates transformation. Showing up every day, even for just a few minutes, does more for your growth than any single explosive effort, because those tiny efforts stack, they multiply. And they teach you the most important lesson of all. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be present. Do it especially when you don't feel like it. The true test of your commitment is not how well you perform when things are easy. It's how you respond when you're tired, distracted, overwhelmed, or uninspired. Tiny habits are designed to be sustainable even in your worst moments. You don't need an hour, you need 5 focused minutes. You don't need total clarity, you just need to do one small thing that aligns with your values. It's in the moments when you least feel like showing up that your habits matter most. Because every time you follow through when it's hard, you reinforce the truth that your actions are stronger than your feelings. You prove to yourself that you are in control. That kind of self-trust is priceless, and it's built one tiny choice at a time. Systems create sustainability. If you want tiny habits to stick, you need more than willpower. You need systems. A system is a structure that supports the action you want to take. It could be setting a daily reminder, designing your environment to remove friction, or attaching a habit to an existing routine. When you create systems around your habits, you reduce the mental effort required to follow through. Systems make your habits automatic. You don't have to wake up and ask yourself whether you'll work on your goal. You already have a process in place. That's what allows habits to survive long term. You're not depending on energy, or you're depending on a pattern you've already built. And that pattern gives your habits a place to grow, to deepen, to evolve into something much larger than they first appeared. Legacy is built in the quiet. Most of what you do to become great will never be seen. The early mornings, the small sacrifices, the moments when you choose discipline over comfort, these aren't the things that get shared or celebrated, but they're the things that count. Legacy isn't shaped in front of the world, it's shaped in solitude and obscurity and repetition. The empire you build will not be made of singular events, but of thousands of small. Part of you wants to avoid the work. That resistance you feel isn't a stop sign, it's a signal. It means you're in the exact place where growth is waiting. Discipline over motivation, motivation will fail you. That's not a possibility, it's a guarantee. Some days you'll wake up driven, focused, fired up. But most days you won't. And if your actions are tied to your feelings, you'll move in short, unsustainable bursts. You'll get caught in a cycle of starting strong, burning out, and starting over. That's why discipline is everything. Discipline is the bridge between goals and results. It's what steps in when motivation disappears. It's not glamorous. It doesn't need inspiration or a perfect playlist or the right weather. It simply follows through. Discipline is the internal voice that says, I made a commitment and I keep it, even when the external environment gives you every reason to postpone. This is where true progress is made, not in the highs of emotion, but in the quiet power of consistency. Consistency is greater than intensity. People romanticize intensity. They get attached to the idea of going all in for a week or a month. But intense effort without consistency is a dead end. You can go to the gym for 3 hours one day and do nothing the rest of the week. It won't change you. Real results come from what you do over and over, not what you do once in a while with extreme effort. Consistency is what compounds. It doesn't matter how small the action is if it's repeated. And consistency is built when you act regardless of how you feel. Anyone can be consistent when they're motivated, but if you train yourself to be consistent when you're not, you unlock something far greater than any intense burst of action. You become reliable, you become steady, you become a force. Tiny habits build empires when you don't feel like doing something. The temptation is to do nothing at all. But even the smallest action is a win. A 5-minute walk, 1-page read, a short journaling session. These may feel insignificant in the moment, but they are the exact bricks that build your foundation. The power of these habits isn't in their size, it's in their regularity. Tiny habits lower the barrier to entry. They make it possible to show up on the hard days. They keep the streak alive. You don't need to crush a workout or write a chapter every time. You just need to prove to yourself that you don't skip the process, that you honor the path, even when your energy is low. Over time, these tiny habits expand, they reinforce identity, and eventually they build something massive one small action at a time. Systems create sustainability. The days when you don't feel like it are the exact days you need a system, a plan, a default routine that removes the option to negotiate. When emotions are high or energy is low, systems act as anchors. They take the thinking out of the process. You don't have to decide, you just execute. Watching and you still decided to show up. It's easy to act when you feel like it. But if you can learn to act when you don't, you stop being controlled by your circumstances and start shaping your future. Success is not about how hard you can push yourself once. It's not about the occasional burst of effort, nor is it about running on adrenaline or inspiration. True, sustainable progress comes from systems, deliberate routines, and structures that eliminate the need for constant decision-making. Systems take the randomness out of growth. They provide a framework that supports consistency and eliminates friction. When you have systems in place, you don't rely on your mood to determine your actions. You show up because the process is already defined, and your only job is to follow it. The beauty of a system is that it functions even on your worst days. When your energy is low, when you're distracted, when you feel like quitting, systems keep you on track. They hold you steady when motivation would let you drift. Systems are not glamorous. They are not loud, but they are powerful. They create rhythm. They build habits. They make your actions repeatable. And over time, those repeated actions are what shape who you become. Discipline over motivation. It's tempting to wait for motivation. It's tempting to think you'll take action when you feel ready or inspired. But the truth is that motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls without warning. If your plan depends on how motivated you feel, it's a plan destined to collapse. This is where discipline becomes essential. Discipline is the internal engine that drives action regardless of mood. It's the ability to show up without needing to feel like it. And discipline is strengthened by systems. A disciplined person without a system can still struggle because discipline alone requires constant mental effort. But a disciplined person with a system, that's powerful, that's sustainable. When you remove the daily decision-making, when your system determines when, where, and how you take action, you make discipline automatic. You conserve energy. You reduce friction. You make following through the easiest option. Systems multiply the force of discipline by reducing the cost of execution. Consistency is greater than intensity. Intensity is often praised, but it's rarely sustainable. You can push yourself to the limit for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, but eventually fatigue sets in. Life gets busy, circumstances change, and without a system, your efforts become scattered. Consistency is what delivers results, and systems are what make consistency possible. A good system doesn't rely on intensity. It accounts for real life. It allows for imperfection. It's designed to be followed over the long term, not just during a short-lived burst of enthusiasm. You don't need to be extreme, you just need to be steady. And steadiness is what systems provide. They make it easier to do a little every day instead of doing a lot once and then burning out. That's how real progress happens, not through rare moments of intensity, but through regular, repeated effort. Tiny habits build empires. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You don't need to make giant changes to see growth. What you need is the discipline to take small steps every day and the system to support those steps. Tiny habits done consistently are the building blocks of greatness. And systems are what allow those habits to thrive. A tiny habit without a system is vulnerable. It can easily be forgotten, skipped, or neglected. But when that habit is built into a system attached to a time, a place, or a trigger, it becomes part of your routine. It becomes automatic, and over time, those small actions compound. They build momentum. They shape identity. An empire isn't built in one day, it's built one brick at a time. And systems are what ensure you keep laying bricks. Do it especially when you don't feel like it. The hardest days are the most important. These are the days when motivation is absent, when excuses come easily, when skipping feels justified. But if you have a system, you don't need to rely on willpower. The system does the work for you. It reduces the gap between intention and action. You don't have to think about whether you'll follow through, you already know. You've set the rule. You've defined the process. And your job is just to honor it. This is where the real power of systems shines. On the days you don't feel like showing up, the system catches you. It acts as a net, keeping you from falling off track. You may not perform perfectly, but you still show up, and that's what matters most. Systems aren't there for the good days, they're there for the hard ones. Legacy is built in the quiet. People often admire the outcome, but they rarely understand the process. They see the success, but not the system behind it. They notice the result, but not the routine that produced it. Legacy is not built in front of a crowd, it's built in the quiet repetition of daily effort. It's built in the systems that make those efforts possible. When you commit to a system, you commit to a future version of yourself that's stronger, more consistent, and more reliable. The quiet, structured routines you follow each day may not draw applause, but they're what define you in the long run. The world celebrates outcomes. It claps when someone wins, succeeds, or reaches the mountaintop. But what it rarely sees or chooses to ignore is the quiet process that built that success. Legacy isn't born in the spotlight. It's carved in silence through ordinary days, invisible sacrifices, and consistent effort. There are no fireworks for discipline. There is no applause for showing up early, for staying late, or for choosing responsibility over comfort. And yet, that's exactly where legacy is shaped in the moments no one else sees. The truth is, the defining chapters of your story aren't written in front of others. They're written in solitude. They're written in the mornings you rise before the sun when no one's watching. In the small decisions to keep going when quitting would be easier. In the hours you spend refining, practicing, learning, and working without you forward, even when your feelings fight you. And over time, it becomes your identity. You stop needing motivation when your actions are simply part of who you are. Consistency is greater than intensity. There's a misunderstanding in our culture that intensity is what leads to success. People believe you have to go all in, sprint, push yourself to extremes, but intensity burns out. It's not built to last. What truly changes your life, what builds legacies, is consistency. Doing the work over and over again, even when no one notices, even when nothing seems to be happening. That's what creates movement. One intense effort can't compete with a month of consistent action. One big push doesn't carry the same weight as years of steady progress. Legacy is not the result of a single breakthrough moment. It's the result of doing what needs to be done again and again with intention and purpose. Consistency is what turns effort into momentum and momentum into mastery. Tiny habits build empires. When you think of legacy, it's easy to think big, huge achievements, major milestones, high-impact moments. But legacy is built from the ground up, and the ground is made of habits, not massive shifts, but tiny actions. Brushing past the urge to hit snooze, saying no to distractions, writing one sentence, reading one page, stretching for 5 minutes. These actions seem small, but they aren't. They are the seeds of greatness. Tiny habits are the foundation of the systems and standards that shape your future. Because they're doable, they're sustainable, they allow you to stay in motion. And over time, they become identity-based. You're not just someone who occasionally does the work, you become someone who never skips it. Empires are built one brick at a time. Habits are those bricks. Do it especially when you don't feel like it. This is where legacy is most deeply formed, in the moments you don't feel like showing up. It's easy to act when you're excited, but on the days when nothing feels worth doing, when you're tired, discouraged, or overwhelmed, those are the days that count most. If you only take action when it's easy, you'll never know what you're capable of. But when you take action, especially when you don't feel like it, you prove to yourself that your values are stronger than your emotions. These are the invisible victories that legacy is built on. No one will see you resist the urge to quit. No one will hear the voice in your head that you silence. But those small acts of self-leadership define your story more than any external recognition ever could. Systems create sustainability. You can't rely on willpower alone to carry you through the quiet, thankless seasons. You need systems, reliable structures that make your choices automatic. Systems are how you stay aligned on the hard days. They create rhythm. They reduce decision fatigue. They let you focus on execution, not deliberation. A strong system means your legacy isn't at the mercy of your feelings or your environment. It creates predictability in an unpredictable world. It turns effort into a repeatable process, one that you can show up for regardless of how you feel. Systems are what allow your consistency to survive the noise, the setbacks, the internal battles. They are the scaffolding around your quiet work, keeping you upright as you build something meaningful piece by piece, day by day.